Starting at number 10, we have the sixth cholera plague pandemic. That was from the years 1910 and 1911. That had a death toll of over 800,000. Now, the sixth cholera plague originated in India, where over 800,000 people lost their lives before it spread to the Middle East, North Africa, Eastern Europe, and even Russia. And this sixth cholera pandemic was also the source of the last American outbreak of cholera back in the year 1910 to 1911. By the year 1923, cholera cases had been cut down drastically, although it was still a constant thing over in India. Number 9 brings us the flu pandemic of the year 1968 with a death toll of 1 million. There was a Category 2 flu pandemic, sometimes referred to as the Hong Kong flu. This 1968 flu pandemic was caused by the H3N2 strain of the influenza A virus. Now, from the first reported case on July 13th, 1968, over in Hong Kong, within 3 months, this thing spread to the Philippines, India, Australia, Europe, and even the United States. Now, while the 1968 pandemic had a low mortality rate at about 0.5%, it still resulted in 500,000 residents of Hong Kong losing their lives, which was approximately 15% of the entire population of Hong Kong at that time. Now, next up, we have the flu pandemic of the year 1889 to 1890 with a death toll of 1 million. So originally, the Asiatic flu, or the Russian flu as it was called, was thought to be an outbreak of the influenza A virus subtype H2N2. But recent discoveries showed that it was actually the influenza A virus subtype H3N8. Now, the first cases were observed in May 1889 in 3 separate distant locations: in Bukhara in Central Asia, Athabasca in Canada, and also over in Greenland. Now, the rapid population growth of the 19th century, specifically in the urban areas, really just helped to spread the flu, and before long, the outbreak had spread across the globe, becoming a pandemic. Number 7, we have the third cholera pandemic between the years 1852 and 1860. Their death toll was also 1 million. Considered to be the most deadly of the 7 cholera pandemics, like the first and second pandemics, the third cholera pandemic originated over in India, and it spread through Asia, Europe, North America, and Africa. Now, there's a British physician by the name of Jon Snow, no relation to the character from Game of Thrones, but he tracked down cases of cholera, and he eventually succeeded in discovering that, hey, contaminated water was actually the means of how this was being transmitted. The Asian flu comes in next at number 6 between the years 1956 to 1958. Its death toll was 2 million. Now, the Asian flu was a pandemic outbreak of the influenza A H2N2 subtype that originated in China. Now, the Asian flu traveled from China to Singapore and the United States, and estimates for the loss of life total of the Asian flu by the World Health Organization is approximately 2 million, and 69,800 of those were in the US.
Coronary artery disease. Experts suggest that artery diseases are the deadliest strain of diseases in the world. The World Health Organization estimates that 7.4 million people die of heart disease every year. Unfortunately, the majority of those deaths occur in poor to low to middle income families. People who smoke, people who eat bad, those are often the cases where you find people get sick from heart diseases. Fact number 12, meningitis. It is an inflammation of the protective membranes of the brain and the spinal cord. The inflammation may be caused by infection and possible drugs. If you develop meningitis, you may suffer from intense headaches, and in severe cases, convulsions, delirium, and death. SARS. Yes, SARS. Some of you who are from Toronto may remember the SARS outbreak back in the early 2000s. SARS is basically a worse version of pneumonia. If you contract it, it's a really bad respiratory disease, and it could result in death. Luckily, there have been no reported cases of SARS since 2003, but scientists do believe that SARS still lives in animals and out in the wild, so there's no saying that it might not come back. Okay, so the next disease we are looking at is a sexually transmitted disease. Yeah, nobody wants those, so be careful in the bedroom. Make sure you always use a condom. No glove, no love. Am I right? Syphilis is known to affect about 12 12 million people annually, and 90% of those people are living in the developing world. Symptoms of syphilis include rashes and can actually lead to heart problems. Lower respiratory infections. The World Health Organization estimates that lower respiratory infections actually account for 3.1 million or 5.5% of deaths every year. This group of diseases includes pneumonia, bronchitis, and influenza. These cases are very common. Like the flu, lower respiratory infections do occur very commonly during flu season, which in the northern hemisphere is December through February, and in the southern hemisphere it is June through August. And in tropical regions, these diseases happen all year round. The flu season is all the time. Stroke, I mean, again, a very common disease. A stroke is when an artery in the brain is blocked or is leaking. Oxygen-deprived brain cells begin to die within minutes. It all happens very fast, and if you don't get to the hospital on time, it can lead to more and more damage. Strokes occur to approximately 15 million people worldwide. Nearly 6 million of these people die from strokes. Okay, another big fact coming at you. HIV and AIDS. We've all heard of this. It's rampant around the world and causes a lot of uproar. HIV is short for human immune deficiency virus. It's a virus that attacks your immune system. HIV can actually lead to AIDS. AIDS stands for Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome. AIDS is a chronic and life-threatening illness. According to the Foundation for AIDS Research, since the start of the pandemic, almost 39 million people have died from the virus. Studies have shown that 5,700 outbreaks of HIV/AIDS occur every day. Okay, diarrheal diseases. Diarrhea is when you pass 3 or more loose stools a day. When diarrhea occurs too often, you lose a lot of water, a lot of salt, and you end up becoming dehydrated. Death actually may occur if you experience diarrhea for too long of a time. Many people in poorer countries who don't have access to healthcare because they become dehydrated and they have no food or water to help them heal. Diarrhea can be caused by intestinal infections. It can be caused by bacteria getting into your intestines, upsetting your stomach. There's a lot of ways you can actually contract diarrhea. Traveler's diarrhea, you eat something with parasites in it, drink water that's contaminated. Those are all ways you could get diarrhea, and if you don't have the proper ways to heal your body, it can result in death. Unfortunately, diarrhea often occurs in areas that do not have good sanitization practices. Number 19 of the deadliest diseases. Diabetes is actually on the list. You may or may not be surprised. It is a disease that's very rampant in North America. Diabetes is a group of diseases that affects insulin production. There are 2 types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. With type 1 diabetes, the pancreas can actually not produce any insulin. With type 2 diabetes, the pancreas does not actually produce enough insulin, or it's not used properly by the body. Type 2 diabetes can actually be caused by a number of factors. The way you eat, your diet, your exercise, how much weight you carry, all factors that could lead to type 2 diabetes. Number 20 is malaria, a disease caused by mosquitoes. Ow. You don't want to get malaria. It's not fun. Malaria is caused by a parasite in mosquitoes. People can contract malaria by being bitten by an infected mosquito. You know, when you're out in the woods or you're traveling and your mosquitoes are everywhere, you gotta be careful because those mosquitoes could have malaria. And if you get that, you're gonna be in a lot of pain. According to the World Health Organization, in 2012, 637,000 deaths were caused by malaria. Many of these deaths are in sub-Saharan Africa. Malaria is actually preventable, but unfortunately a lot of the preventative measures aren't accessible to people all over the world. So many people are dying of this disease.
Now, one of the most bizarre ones that I came in to discover was nematophobia. Now, this is a phobia where you're afraid of names. So I don't even think you could introduce yourself. Hi, my name is Dave Walpole. If you introduce yourself to them, it would probably drive them nuts. On the same token, there is people who suffer chronophobia, and that is the fear of time. I guess you could say that time is well wasted on these individuals. Now, speaking about time, let's talk about memory. These are great things. They help us reflect on ourselves, helping us grow to become better people. But if you know somebody who has nematophobia, they are literally afraid of memories. This may be a cause from a traumatic life experience, such as a death or maybe even abuse. Have you ever heard of dextrophobia? That's the fear of having any object sitting to your right. Now, there are some people who are afraid of losing contact on their phone. And I'm not talking about Wi-Fi contact, I'm talking about actual contacts. That's nomophobia. And like I said, you lose a friend's contact, you're gonna go crazy. Now, although we may have some religious people out there watching this video, keep in mind that there may be people suffering from ecclesiophobia, and that is the fear of church. Now, vampires, they may suffer from heliophobia. That is the fear of light. Gremlins also are afraid of those things, if you've ever seen that movie. Now, most men probably suffer from palacrophobia, which is the fear of being bald. Now, for successful people, they probably would not like to be poor after having a lot of money. If their desperation turned into fear, they would have phalacrophobia. Now, all you girls out there, I know you love to straighten your hair and look so good, and sometimes when you're out in the rain, you're like, oh god, please don't hurt it. But you could be theoretically suffering from pulviophobia, which is the fear of rain falling down on you, specifically in your hair. Did you know that Oprah Winfrey has a phobia? It's called chicklephobia, and it's the fear of chewing gum. And she's so afraid of it, she's had it banned from her studios. Okay, here's a good one for you. If you are afraid of flutes, yes, there are people who are afraid of flutes. You suffer from olophobia. I didn't even know flutes were dangerous. Now, I wonder if some of you suffer from asymmetrophobia. That is the fear of having mismatched objects or even socks. I probably would relate it to OCD, but who knows. Now, did you know that there is a fear of eating? But eating's so good for you. How could you be afraid of it? Especially a nice big chocolate cake. To be honest, people can be afraid of eating because they might be afraid of choking. And this phobia is called sitophobia. And when I first thought of sitophobia, I thought that was going to be afraid of sitting. But that one's actually called cathisophobia. And last but not least, I saved the best one for last. You guys probably can guess what it is. It's the phobia of being afraid of phobias. Now, whether or not, I don't know if this actually means if you're afraid of getting a phobia, or if it means you're just simply afraid of phobias in general. I'm probably gonna go with the first one. And if you suffer from this, you have phobophobia.
But we have Kim Goodman. Now, Kim Goodman, she doesn't have the largest eyes, but in actuality, she's able to pop out her eyeballs to a protrusion of 12 millimeters, which is 0.47 inches beyond her eye sockets. Her eyes were measured on November 2nd, 2007 over in Istanbul, Turkey. And to determine this, she had to be measured by an optometrist using a special device known as a proptometer. We travel all the way to Angola for the world's widest mouth, and that belongs to Francisco Domingo Joaquim, aka Chiquino. Francisco's mouth spans 6.69 inches, and he's held this record since 2010. Francisco has a connective tissue disorder that allows his mouth to stretch so wide open. We visit India again to look at the longest fingernails. Sridhar Chalal of Pune, India, he started growing his fingernails on his left hand when he was just 14 years old. His nails all measured together at a combined length of 909.6 centimeters, which is 29 feet, 10.1 inches. These are the nails only on his left hand, and for his right hand, he keeps them trimmed. However, due to his nails growing for so many years and the weight on his left hand is left permanently disabled. In 2010, Sridhar traveled to the United States to get them cut finally after 66 years. The country of China brings us the biggest hand, Liu Hui. He was born with his left thumb, his index, as well as his middle fingers much larger than normal. His left thumb measured 26 centimeters, equal to 10.2 inches, and his index finger measured 30 centimeters, which is 11.8 inches, and the middle finger sat at 15 centimeters, or 5.9 inches. The overall weight of his left arm was about 10 kilograms. That's equal to 22 pounds. However, he's since gotten surgery and reduced the size of his hand to a normal size. Now, the most surprising body part in this episode is the stretchiest skin. Gary Turner from the United Kingdom is able to stretch his skin from his stomach to a length of 15.8 centimeters, which is 6.25 inches. This is all due to a rare condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and this is a condition where the collagen that strengthens the skin and determines its elasticity becomes defective, and this results in the skin becoming a lot more loose than normal.